Before today's video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest videos. If you want to see a case or topic covered by Paranormally Listed, then go to criminallylisted.com and fill out the questionnaire under the Suggest a Case tab. Number 3. Brian Shaffer. How does someone enter a building and never leave, but no one ever sees them again? That's the case of Brian Shaffer, a 27-year-old Ohio State University medical student. Brian was born on February 11, 1979, to Renee and Randy Shaffer, and he grew up in Pickerington, Ohio. After graduating from Pickerington High School, Brian attended Ohio State University and received a bachelor's degree in microbiology in 2003. Continuing his studies at OSU, Brian was enrolled as a medical student. In 2005, Brian began a romantic relationship with Alexis Wagoneer, a fellow medical student. During his second year of medical school, Brian's mother, Renee, was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. Sadly, on March 6, 2006, Renee Shaffer lost her battle with cancer. The death of Brian's mother had a big impact on his life. His friends said he put on a strong front, but he was hurting more than he let on. Before Renee passed away, she bought Brian and Wagoneer a trip to Miami, Florida. The trip was set for April 3, 2006, during Brian and Wagoneer's spring break. With spring break approaching, Brian was busy studying for midterms. He met his father, Randy Shaffer, for dinner on March 31st. Randy thought his son was exhausted. During their meal at Outback Steakhouse, Brian told his father that he was going bar hopping later that night. Randy Shaffer didn't think that was a good idea, but he knew his son was an adult and he could make his own decisions. After dinner at 9 p.m., Brian called his girlfriend, Alexis Wagoneer, to confirm the details of their Florida trip. She said the conversation seemed normal, and Brian ended the phone call with, "Love you." At 9:30 p.m., Brian met his friend, William Clint Florence, at the Ugly Tuna Saloon for drinks. Brian and Florence went bar hopping in the Arena District in Columbus. The area is called that because of the nationwide arena where the NHL team, the Columbus Blue Jackets, play. While bar hopping, the duo had one shot of hard liquor at each bar, eventually meeting Meredith Reed, a friend of Florence, at a bar. Just after midnight, Reed gave Brian and Florence a ride back to the Ugly Tuna Saloon for their final round of drinks. On CCTV, you can see Brian, Florence, and Reed riding up an escalator to the entrance of the Ugly Tuna Saloon. The time was 1:15 a.m. The three enjoyed the live music at the bar. At some point, Brian became separated from Florence and Reed. At 1:55 a.m., Brian is seen on the same CCTV escorting two unknown women out of the bar, talking to them for a few minutes, and then saying goodbye and re-entering the bar. This is the last sighting of Brian Shaffer. At 2 a.m., the Ugly Tuna Saloon closed, and all the bar patrons were seen leaving the exit on CCTV. Brian Shaffer is not one of them. Florence and Reed wait outside the bar for Brian to exit, but they don't see him. They tried calling him, but he didn't answer his phone. Assuming Brian walked home, Florence and Reed left to go home themselves. On April 1st, the day after bar hopping, Florence tried to call Brian, but again, no one answered. Later that day, Wagoneer drove from Toledo, Ohio, to Brian's apartment in Columbus. She found his car still in the parking lot. In the apartment, nothing seemed to be out of place. Wagoneer decided to stay at Shaffer's apartment and wait till he arrived. But over the weekend, Brian did not come home. Fearing something was wrong, Wagoneer called Brian's father, Randy. Randy tried to call his son, but he also had no luck getting a hold of him. Randy contacted his other son, Derek, to help locate Brian, but he also had no luck. Brian was expected at the airport on April 3rd for his flight to Miami. However, he did not show up and he missed the flight. Later that day, Randy Shaffer reported his son missing to the Columbus Police Department. The Columbus Police launched an investigation. They started at the Ugly Tuna Saloon. While investigating, the police watched all the CCTV footage from the bar. They saw Brian enter but never exit the building. One theory is that Brian could have exited through a service door, but the service door was under construction, so the police said they didn't feel like he would have exited that way. None of the staff in the bar remembered seeing anyone fitting Brian's description being in the bar after the bar closed. Police dogs were brought in, but they could not track him. On April 4th, a $2,000 reward was offered by Crime Stoppers for information about Brian's disappearance. Ohio State University's College of Medicine and Public Health added $5,000 to the reward. Nearly everyone Brian was hanging out with that night took a polygraph exam. They all passed. However, Clint Florence has refused to take one, and he has not taken one at the time of this video. The police do not think that Florence has anything to do with Brian's disappearance, but the Shaffer family thinks he knows more than what he has said. The police were able to locate the two women Brian was talking to on CCTV the last time he was seen. They both have been cleared as suspects. On April 9th, a vigil was held for Brian at OSU. The next day, a tipster called investigators to say he saw Brian at a Columbus convenience store, but investigators determined that was not him. Brian's credit cards and bank accounts have not been accessed, nor has his cell phone made any calls or pinged nearby towers. 9 days later, the police were called to Brian's apartment due to a break-in. Wagoneer was summoned to the apartment to see if anything was missing. Besides some DVDs missing, the apartment looked the same, and the police concluded that the break-in had no connection to the disappearance. Over the next few months, Wagoneer called Brian's cell phone daily. Each time, it went straight to voicemail. But on September 11, 2006, the phone rang. The cell phone company said it may have just been a computer glitch allowing the phone to ring. Nevertheless, the phone pinged a cellular tower in Hillard, about 14 miles northwest of Columbus, Ohio. Later in the year Brian disappeared, the rock band Pearl Jam was playing in Cincinnati, Ohio, about 100 miles from Columbus. During the concert, lead singer Eddie Vedder told the audience that anyone with tips should contact the authorities. Brian's favorite band was Pearl Jam. He even had a tattoo of their Stickman logo on his arm. Unfortunately, many tips came in, but nothing of value. In 2008, the Shaffer family experienced more tragedy. On September 14th, Randy Shaffer was cleaning debris from a storm when a falling tree struck him and killed him. A non-line obituary was posted for Randy Shaffer, and a non-message appeared in the comments. It reads, "Dad, I love you. Love Brian, U.S. Virgin Islands." The police investigated the post, but determined it was a hoax. The IP address was linked to a public access computer in Franklin County, Ohio, but they have yet to find who wrote the message. In 2020, a photo was sent to the FBI. In the photo is a homeless man in Mexico who resembles Brian, but FBI analysis determined it was not Brian. 15 years after Brian's disappearance, the police released age-progressed images of what Brian might look like at age 42. Some theories have emerged that Brian was murdered the night he went missing. However, there is no evidence of foul play. No one in the bar saw any altercations, and he did not leave through the front door. Another theory is that Brian was murdered, and since construction was going on in the bar, he was buried in the bar somewhere. But the police don't think that this happened because dogs have not detected the scent of a body. Several people think that Brian took his own life. This could be correct because Brian was sad about the death of his mother and he was dealing with the stress of medical school. He may have found it all too overwhelming and decided to end it all. The police have investigated that theory, but they have found no evidence that supports it either. Based on their experiences, most people who are suicidal want their body to be discovered so people know that they are gone. Also, Columbus is the most recorded city by CCTV in Ohio, so Brian would have had to appear on CCTV at some point before taking his life. The last theory is that, after the death of his mother, Brian wanted to start a new life, so he walked away from his old life. Friends have said that Brian told them that he'd like to go away and live somewhere tropical and warm and pursue his true passion, music. Although that could have happened, Brian was intoxicated that night and to manage to leave without being seen and not use any of his credit cards or bank accounts would have been very difficult. At the time of this video, Brian Shaffer is still missing. The police have no leads. There's a $100,000 reward for information regarding his whereabouts. Number 2. Michael William Negrete. On March 25, 1981, Miguel and Mary Negrete became proud first-time parents to their son, Michael William Negrete. Michael had a typical childhood. He grew up in California and had the same interests as many American kids in those times, like Star Wars, The Simpsons, and video games. In middle school, he became a big fan of music. He especially liked John Coltrane, a jazz saxophone player popular in the 1960s. Michael joined the middle school orchestra playing trumpet. In 1997, Michael and his family moved to San Diego, California. He initially had a difficult time with the move, but he eventually joined the Rancho Bernardo High School marching band and made friends within that group. During his senior year, he joined the San Diego Youth Symphony. He appeared to have a bright future in music. When it came time to apply for colleges, Michael's top pick was the University of California, Los Angeles, also known as UCLA. He received a letter from UCLA that he was not only accepted to the school, but he also received a music scholarship as well. In the fall of 1999, Michael moved into the 6th floor of the Dykstra Hall dorms on the UCLA campus. During his freshman semester, he was a near-perfect student with excellent grades. With finals coming up, Michael decided to blow off some steam and go to the birthday party of a fellow hallmate, which was being held in the dormitory. On the night of December 9th, 1999, Michael was seen at the party acting normal. People saw him drinking a margarita. Hours later, he returned to his dorm room, where he logged onto his computer to play the online game Quake with a friend who was a few rooms down from his own. After an hour of playing online, several people saw Michael leave his room and go to his friend's room, whom he had just lost to. Witnesses said that he had a short conversation with his online competitor, they traded high fives, and they made witty remarks about a rematch. At 4 a.m., Michael was last seen entering his dorm room for the night. That was the last time anyone ever saw Michael Negrete. At 9 a.m., Michael's roommate woke up and discovered he wasn't there. What was weird was that all his belongings, including his clothes, shoes, wallet, and musical instruments, were there. The roommate thought it was odd that his shoes were still there because Michael did not leave the room without them, even if he were stepping into the hallway. The weekend passed and no one was overly concerned. But that changed when Michael didn't attend his first exam on Monday, December 13th. The school contacted Michael's parents. They had not heard from him, so they immediately reported him missing. Several more days passed, and Michael missed 2 more exams and a musical performance. News of the disappearance spread fast around the campus. The school, the staff, and the students created a $100,000 reward for information. The reward eventually swelled to $119,000 thanks to donations from outside the school. Investigators searched the 400-acre campus. Search dogs were brought in, but nothing was found. After the searchers came up with nothing, the investigators questioned everyone who was at the Dykstra Hall party. Although they all agreed that Michael was drinking, he did not show signs of concerning behavior. Polygraphs were conducted, but no leads came from them. Investigators focused on the time between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. They think that Michael possibly walked out of the building to meet someone, but there are problems with that theory. At the time, UCLA's security was located at the entrances of all the dorm buildings, and students had to show ID to enter the building. Security said that they never saw Michael leave that night, nor did he try to regain access to the dormitory. One witness came forward in 2000, claiming to see a suspicious man walking around the 6th floor, which was Michael's floor. He was described to a sketch artist as a heavy-set Caucasian in his mid-30s, approximately 5'7" to 5'8", wearing a shiny gray jacket with a turquoise-colored design. Another witness said that they saw someone resembling Michael outside the dorm building at 4:35 a.m. Both witnesses' stories did not generate any new leads, and the police do not know if they are connected. It was thought that another lead developed as Michael's AOL Instant Messenger account, TrainFan1, suddenly became active. Investigators traced down the lead, but unfortunately, it was a dead end. They found out that after a time of inactivity, the username expired, allowing the next Coltrane fan to snatch up the username. Michael's credit cards and bank accounts have not been used since his disappearance. After 23 years, the police do not have any new leads, and the case is still unsolved. But they do believe Michael Negrete met with foul play. The police still want to talk to the man in the sketch, but no one has ever come forward, and his identity remains a mystery. If Michael William Negrete is still alive today, he'd be 41 years old at the time of this video. Number 1. Keith Reinhard. The story of Keith Reinhard vanishing without a trace doesn't even start with him. In Silver Plum, Colorado, Tom Young owned a small bookstore on the small town's main road. On September 7, 1987, Young closed the store, and he was never seen alive again. The townspeople thought that Young was going on a trip to Europe, but after 3 weeks, no one had heard or saw from him or his dog, Gus, so the townspeople started to talk. His bookstore was eventually closed due to non-payment of rent. Almost a year later, in June 1988, Keith Reinhard, a 48-year-old Chicago sports reporter, moved to Silver Plume. Wanting more in life, Keith started a 3-month sabbatical from his job and met his friend, Ted Parker, in the Colorado town. Keith and Parker had been friends for 40 years. Keith wanted to open an antique store across the street from Parker's Cafe. The store was formerly Young's bookstore. If the antique store worked out, Keith would send for his wife, Carolyn, and they would make Silver Plume their permanent residence. As Keith neared 50, he was having somewhat of a midlife crisis. He set goals to get in better shape, overcome his fear of heights, and start writing a novel. Soon, Keith became obsessed with the man who owned the storefront that he was currently occupying, Tom Young, and the mystery of his disappearance. Thinking it was a good story, Keith started talking to residents in Silver Plume who knew Young. When Keith started writing his book, he based the main character, Guy Gypsum, on Young and himself. People said that Keith would get so wrapped up in his story that he sometimes believed he was Gypsum. On July 31st, 1988, in the nearby Republican Mountain, 2 hunters discovered a body along with the remains of a dog. Both had a single gunshot wound to the head. The police investigated and determined it was the bodies of Tom Young and his dog, Gus, who went missing a year earlier. A revolver was located at the scene. During the investigation, the police learned that Young purchased the gun 4 days before he went missing. They ruled his death a suicide. A week later, at 2:30 p.m., Keith Reinhard closed his antique store for the day. He walked around the town telling several people he was going to climb to the top of Pendleton Mountain. At 4 p.m., he entered Parker's Cafe and told his friend about the climb. Keith said, "If I don't return, they call on the rescue." No one took Keith seriously because he didn't climb alone because of his fear of heights. It was also 4 p.m., and that hike would take 6 hours to conquer. Also, he wasn't dressed appropriately for a climb. He wore tennis shoes, blue jeans, and a flannel shirt, and he had no supplies. On August 7, 1988, at 4:30 p.m., Keith was last seen walking towards the mountain. He was never seen again. The next morning, when he didn't return, a 125-man search party with helicopters and a dozen tracking dogs combed Pendleton Mountain. Tragically, during the 7-day search, one of the pilots crashed and died in the mountains. The search was called off after 7 days because no clues were found regarding Keith's whereabouts. Some of the problems were the difficult terrain with 3,000 vertical feet and 60-degree slopes. Also, since Keith didn't have any supplies, this gave the police fewer clues to look for. In the 30 years before Keith's disappearance, the Colorado Alpine Rescue Teams have located every person that they knew was missing. However, they couldn't find any trace of Keith. This led some people to speculate that he didn't go to the mountain. Keith's friends looked through his home for possible clues. Next to his computer was a newspaper with the headline, "Tom Young's Body Found." When friends looked at his computer, the unfinished novel he was working on was still on the screen. The last words he wrote were, "Guy Gypsum changed into some hiking boots and donned a heavy flannel shirt." He understood Tom now and his motivation. Guy closed the door and then walked off towards the lush, shadowless Colorado forest above. His friends didn't find any definitive clues regarding his whereabouts. Keith Reinhardt's case appeared on the January 31st, 1990 episode of Unsolved Mysteries. However, no new leads came from the show. Some theories have emerged that Keith went into the mountains and took his own life, like Young. However, his family said he was optimistic about the future and had a positive mental attitude, so they felt that this was not a real possibility. Another theory is that Young and Keith were gunned down by the same person. Operating the same storefront, it's possible that they both came across something someone wanted to keep quiet. While Young's death was ruled a suicide, ballistic testing from Young's gun could never confirm if the bullet came from that gun. Some of Keith's family and friends have a theory that he wanted to make his own mystery and walked away from his life. His friends and family believe that the discovery of Young's body ruined the mystery of Keith's unfinished novel and it sunk the author's story. They also claim that the antique store was not doing well and he could see his dreams slipping away. The day Keith vanished, he told as many people as possible about climbing Pendleton Mountain to leave a false trail and just leave everything behind. Keith's wife, Carolyn, does not believe that theory because she doesn't believe he would have left behind his loved ones. However, she still hopes he is alive. She said that if he came home, she wouldn't divorce him and she would come to terms with his reasons for leaving. Unfortunately, Keith's son, Sven, who appeared on Unsolved Mysteries, died from carbon monoxide poisoning in November 2001. In September 2021, two college film students were hiking and shooting footage for a student film on Pendleton Mountain when they came across Keith's wallet. It is the first trace of him that's been found in 33 years. A documentary in the works explores the possibility of Young and Keith meeting foul play. According to their website, the Dark Side of the Mountain documentary is in post-production with no release date set. Next year marks the 35th anniversary of Keith Reinhardt's disappearance. If he is still alive, he would be 85 years old. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.